Here.
Yo, what's up, bro? I
Yup.
already got this recording to the cloud, and then let me make you co-host. Oh, you already are co-host. Great.
Perfect. Perfect. You want me to pop it off or you gonna start it off?
Yeah, if you want, you can just go ham, let them all in. You
Okay,
please.
perfect.
I'm just gonna sit this one out today.
Perfect. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Welcome in. Welcome in. We got Nick joining us today. He's going to be in the background, but I'm going to be going ahead and holding down the fort as always and handling your Q&A and also having some amazing conversations with you guys. We can go ahead and let everyone in. Hope everyone is having a good start to their week. Go ahead and change my name while we wait. Also, and this call, I want to do things slightly a little bit differently for those of you guys who are willing or wanting to participate. I want to go ahead and go over maybe some last week wins that you guys may have, encountered or want to share with the group that could be valuable. I know I'll start. One of the big wins that I want to share with you guys, this that I got last week was, as you guys know, that I talked about a couple weeks before, is I wanted to start challenging myself to start raising private capital so I could be in a position to do deals myself. And last week, I had my first meeting with my first capital investment partner, and it went very well. So I got them to commit to 150 grand line of credit, which is super exciting. So I'm gonna use that to start getting my feet wet and look for my first project. So if you guys have any deals in Tampa that you guys are doing houses for, keep Francisco in mind. So that was a really big win for me, just because even and Jay's perfect timing. Speaking a little bit about it with Jay, implementing stuff that he had or stuff that he mentioned on the call. I literally implemented what Jay said. Shout out to Jay for literally just joining right on time. And yeah, I got my first capital partner. So shout out to you.
You're telling me I told you something that actually worked?
Yes. Yeah, I was just sharing with
No
the
way.
group that a big win that I had last week. I had my first meeting with a capital partner. We sat down, we had lunch. I told him what I was trying to do, and the things that I was trying to get involved in. And, after getting to know me for a little bit, and we spoke for maybe like an hour and a half, 2 hours, he gave me a line of credit of 150. Yeah.
Oh,
So and the crazy part is the reason it was such a big thing for me is because, again, like I've told you guys, like I wanted to start getting my feet wet and doing projects myself, getting more experience, getting more hands-on. And it was really relationship based. He came based on a referral from a very close friend, right? And he's a retired guy. He's been retired for some years now. And I pretty much told him, like, hey, I have a lot of experience flipping, analyzing deals, but I haven't done it myself. I always, just assigned it, gave it away and stuff like that. And then one of the only thing that he required is just to have someone in my corner that could walk me through the entire process. So basically like an experienced operator, right? So the agreement that we set up, it pretty much just entails me ensuring him that everything is going to be smoothly, bring like a more experienced operator into the fold. Obviously, I would have to cut that operator a little bit, of the cut of the equity of the deal and stuff like that. But it's still a win regardless. I'm not necessarily focused on the money aspect of it, but just the fact that I got access to that and the requirements were very easy to kind of meet. I was happy about that. So shout out to Jay for it. So that was a big win for me. I don't know if you guys want to share any big wins that you guys taken away from the last week or the week before. If anyone wants to share. Jay, I don't know if you had any big wins recently that you
I
got.
had a huge win today. I had Francisco shout me out. I'm going to use this recording as part of my testimonials, if that's all right.
No, yeah. And to be honest, it wasn't as the objections that I thought I was gonna face, it really didn't anything really no objections really came into play because I was just forthcoming with everything. Like listen, in this realm, I'm a newbie, but I have experience doing this. And I think one of the things that I emphasized that I guess he took a liking to was pretty much me emphasizing like, listen, I'm not looking for a home run deal on my first, on my first go around. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna be very conservative. He also knew of the mentorship or the mastermind group that I recently joined. So that was another safety net. And I was like, listen, if I got to get James involved and have him as an experienced operator on paper and I take a lesser cut, I'm even willing to do that. I just want the experience of going through the whole process from acquisition to close to resell to finally selling the end product. That's the experience that I want. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Well, what I will say is you said something a second ago. You didn't get the objections that you thought. No, you did. You took control of the entire sales process there. So those objections those what ifs didn't exist because you took initiative and you were the authority in that conversation.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate you. So yeah, that was a big win, man. So we met last week and then we talked yesterday over the phone. So everything's just set in stone. And now it's just a matter of getting in front of the right deal. So I'm not trying to be like trigger happy and just jump at the first opportunity that comes. Cause obviously like there's a big trust and there's like a lot of trust involved that was like cultivated in the conversation. So I definitely want to make sure that I'm like analyzing like every single opportunity, but not jumping at it. So ideally I'm not trying to go for a full gut my first go around, but if I can find something that we could just paint a little lipstick on and move on, I'll be happy with that. And then I think another thing also that helped too was an area of focus as well too. He doesn't mind where his capital gets deployed, but I wanted to be in an area, which is Tampa, that at least my expertise will be on my side, right? So that way I'm a lot more familiar with what areas to go into, what areas not to dabble into. And then just rely on that. And then also just not relying on my own expertise too, being open to letting other people come in and just say like, hey, even if it's like a consultation fee or something, just be here just in the case, in the event anything goes wrong. You know what I mean? Like it's well worth it to have that peace of mind. So perfect. Anybody else want to share any big wins or have any questions about things that they're currently taking action on, things that are working well for them?
Well, I just received a call from one of the letters that I sent over about 2 weeks ago. Handwritten letter. Lady called me back and they're asking for assessed value on the piece of land in North Carolina, near Lake Norman. And the lady called me. She's like, "Yeah, we get these letters all the time, but I really like that I used a hot pink colored letter and it attracted her to me. And so we are hopefully going to be closing on that one by the end of the month. We're in due diligence right now. By the end of next month, I apologize.
And this is a land deal that you got?
Yeah, piece of land. There's other properties nearby, new construction in the 550 range. And she asked for assessed value, and I never give what they want. So I asked like 5,000 under what they wanted, and we got it under contract.
But even assessed value, even that is still a good. How does assessed value work up there in North Carolina where you guys are at?
I mean, whatever the county assessed it at. So it was assessed at 13,000. They wanted 13,000, and I told them that I'm an investor. This is how I make ends meet. You know, this is how I put food on the table. I can
Right.
do 8250.
Mm,
I can do 8250. Take it or leave it. I'll give you 24 hours to think about it.
mm,
And they're like, okay, let's do it. Great. So I already have another buyer lined up for that for 52,000.
52?
Mhm.
And you got it for 8 grand?
Mhm. Yep.
Hey, I'm trying to be like you when I grow up.
Man, I don't get excited until I see that wire just come right into the bank account, because a lot can go wrong with land.
Yeah.
There could be a failed perk test, and and there's possible issues that could happen with that. But
Yeah. And you know what, Jay? I actually like the fact that you took the position of like take it or leave it. Because I think a lot of times, especially with land, I think one of the biggest objections to overcome is the pricing thing. Because a lot of home or vacant landowners, they're just kind of like, this is my price, I'm firm. And it sounds like they were, did they say did they indicate anything that, say like they're firm on price? How did you get them to like come down?
yeah, how do I get them to come down on price? Well, I play the part of I'm not interested in the deal. So she called me and she said that she got my letter. And I acted like I didn't know what she was talking about. I was like, ma'am, I'm sorry, what letter? Oh, the birthday letter. Oh, happy birthday. And she's like, no, no, you sent me a land letter. I'm like, oh, tell you what, I run a big, I run we have a few things going on, and I send out birthday cards to my previous clients. And I apologize. What land are we talking about? She's like, oh, I have this piece of land over in Lincolnton by the lake. Actually, no, Lake Norman by the lake. And I'm like, oh, well, awesome. It sounds like great piece of land. Why are you selling it? And she's like, oh, well, we've had it for 42 years and it's been in the family. And I told her, well, it's just going to go up in price. Why don't you just keep it for another 42 years? She said, listen, son, I'm 87 years old. And I'm like, so what? Give it to a family member. They'll appreciate. Well, why you just woke up today and you decided you're going to sell this piece of land, out of the blue? And she's like, no, I just really like that letter you sent me, and I just wanted to talk to you maybe purchasing it. And I asked her, hey, do you mind if I ask you a couple questions on it? You asked me a couple questions. You can tell me to go get lost, but I want an answer right now. I was like, I'm going to give you an offer.
Mhm.
I'm a straight shooter. It's either going to be a yes or no. I don't want to hear maybe. I don't want to hear you got to talk to your pastor, your pet rock. And she laughed, and I got her laughing. And the thing is about bringing walls down is if you get somebody to chuckle, if you get somebody to kind of resonate on a emotional level, people buy stuff on emotion, right? That shirt you're wearing today because you like it. It fits right. It looks good.
Right.
So if you get somebody on that emotional level, people will buy everything based off of emotion, and then later they will justify it logically. So I just got them on an emotional plane, and I let them know, this is you can say no to me, and I just don't want you to say, I got to think about it or whatnot. But we decided to close it right there on the spot.
Yeah. And that's real motivation right there too, because oftentimes I tell people that you can't force or coerce motivation, right?
No.
If they really have no reason to sell, or if they at least subconsciously haven't already made that decision internally to part ways with it, you can't conjure that up by trying to, that's something that was already boiling up, especially given her age into account and things of that nature. She made that decision months ago. The right person just had to get in front of her to bring it out. So yeah, that's good. That is very good. Anybody else have any questions? Anything that you guys are working on that you need help on? Any action items that you guys are seeing that's working well for you or not working well that you guys want to share with the group? Judgment-free zone.
Yeah, so I think it was maybe like a couple sessions ago. I talked about that land deal I had under contract at 2.5 acres, and I think I might have a buyer for it. had it under contract for 20K. I actually joined up with some other local wholesalers, some pretty successful wholesaler, Tennessee Home Buyers. And I have a friend who is an acquisitions agent that works for them. So I brought it to him, and one of their buyers is interested in it. So I signed a contract with them at 40K, and I told them whatever they make on top of that is their business. And so should come out 20K on that one.
Nice. And that was you partnering with like a disposition firm?
Yeah, so Tennessee Home Buyers in my local market, they've been around for a pretty good while. Yeah, one of my friends is a acquisitions agent there. So
Nice. Okay. Sweet. That's good. Yeah, collaboration, putting yourself in front of like opportunities where you can collaborate with others or even bring opportunities, to yourself or other people. That's another good avenue to kind of like increase deal flow. I
yeah,
was just talking to someone about this a couple of days ago where they were trying to like do more. And I was like, man, stop trying to do more of what's already hard. You know what I mean? Like trying to cold call yourself and trying to handle so it can be very time consuming. And I think one thing that I at least noticed during my time of doing the cold calling and the SMS, either with VAs or myself, is if you're trying to scale that, you're also scaling the friction that comes along with that. And then increasing the chance of Russian roulette inside of that atmosphere of just because cold outreach is hard. You know what I mean?
yeah,
One way to look at it is, outside of cold calling, which is very essential, outside of SMS, which is very essential, you can also bring opportunities to you, networking, right? Collaborating with other people, right? Collaborating amongst yourselves in this group. I think that would be a very good key to kind of bring opportunities in front of your desk more often to kind of like, move the needle in your favor.
yeah. I was actually a bit torn about it because I thought about just closing on it and relisting it with an agent because I think I could have gotten about 65.
Mm-hmm.
I listed it on the market. Um, so it was like a 45K spread there, but I mean I've only closed one other deal before this, so I'm kind of if I have a sure buyer and it's a more of a streamlined, quicker sale, then that's not going to require me to close on it. Then that's kind of the route I took instead. So
Nice.
yeah.
And I wish Mason was on this call because I mean Mason would be a good resource to connect to too if you want to like close on deals.
I keep forgetting to reach out to that guy.
Yeah. The more access to capital you have, the more choices you have. Is what I'm recently learning. And make sure you do it in advance also too, because I also had a situation last week where I learned through this one of the other lenders that I was networking with was he said now is the most expensive word in real estate. So make sure you plan ahead. Because now is very expensive in real estate. Anybody else want to share things that's going well for them, working for them? Any big wins? Small wins are encouraged too.
Yeah, closing on a deal this week. Super excited.
Woo! Talk to us. Can you talk to us a little bit about it? Give us a small case study about it. If you can, I think he just hung up or got off the call. I'm not sure. But yeah, small wins or big wins are encouraged. I think another thing that I had another situation where I was working with this buyer out in Port Charlotte. This is a retail buyer, not an investor client, but it was a retail buyer. And man, this deal was going to every which way but right. So long story short, they had a lender that they were comfortable with working with. And then once we get under contract, the lender starts taking 3-4 days to respond to emails, things of that nature. And then come to find out, long story short, when it gets time to closing, the lender tells us, oh, we can't close the loan. We ask for explanation. The lender doesn't know how to explain the reason for not moving forward with the loan. It's not that the borrower was, uncredit worthy or didn't qualify. They just couldn't provide the reason. So now we're scrambling, trying to find other lenders and other alternatives and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the seller is still adamant about making sure that this, deal is trying to close and is willing to work with us while we get another lender. Okay. But the seller's thing was that they're trying to buy a house in Oregon, and the house that they were trying to buy was 450. So the seller started getting desperate because they were running out of time because their contract for the other house was about to expire. So they got desperate enough to go down from 730. So we were under contract for 730. They were willing to go down to 647 just to try to make it work. And then obviously that's advantageous for the buyer. So now we have to figure out, okay, what's another alternative? We have to go through a non-QM type of lender. And we got some quotes for the non-QM type of lender, but non-QM lenders are very skeptical of assets over 500,000 because in the event of foreclosure, it's going to be hard to kind of resell and get their money back, right? So one of the lenders that we went was willing to lend on the property for the buyer, but the buyer had to basically 30% down. And they had to bring a substantial amount of money, more money to the table than they originally anticipated, right? So we found a solution. It just wasn't a favorable solution for the buyer. And what I ended up learning about that, which is why I said the joke, now is the most expensive term in real estate, was one of the non-QM lenders. And it was more so one of like a private money guy, but he still falls in the non-QM space. He had an investor that was willing to give 500,000 for the buyer to purchase it, but at the time of closing, he wanted $125,000 back. And he was like, "That's the only way I'm gonna do it." And then the buyer just couldn't swing it. The seller didn't want to swing it, and then the deal ultimately just ended up going to shits, unfortunately. But one of the things that I did take away from that particular situation is that one, you have to manage expectations in the transactions in any party because both parties were super emotional, right? The buyer really wanted it for whatever reason. The seller really wanted it to go through, but the seller was just trying to like do everything in their power to kind of make it forward, but it just got to a point where it just wasn't advantageous for anyone to move forward. So stuff like that happens. Anybody else? Anybody else got any questions about any land stuff that they're working on, house stuff that they're working on?
I actually have a question. I came across a seller in, I guess it's Port St. Charles. Let me take a look. And I guess they got impacted by the recent hurricanes. And so it's a house that, I guess in getting it insured, he said that he just wants to sell it, and he wants to sell it for the amount that he owes. Even though it he's not going to do any more work, he's not going to renovate it. It needs 4 feet of sheetrock, it needs new appliances. And so I'm just kind of like going back and forth in regards to the house is on the market, trying to figure out, what your thoughts would be, or what are you coming up against with, particularly the areas that have been impacted by by different storms across the nation, and how to maybe either find solutions or be a solution for some of these individuals.
And you said it was in Porch, I don't know, or Charlotte?
You know what? Let me pull it up. I don't want to lie to you. But it's I'm nervous, but I don't.
Port Charlotte, it's Port Charlotte probably got hit. Let me see. And they got hit pretty bad though.
Yeah. I mean, but either way, like what has been your experience? Because I know you're in the Florida market, and I don't know if your clients like what you're seeing and what are some of the solutions that you're providing for some of them as you're trying to wholesale and
Now, as I could speak for at least down here, there has been a very big tick in like inventory coming into the market where people are just liquidating either their damaged property or just getting rid of or wanting to move out of the area that they're in. Because we had certain areas like St. Pete, certain areas in Tampa that got really hit hard and affected by a lot of flooding, right? So I haven't ran into a lot of situations where I'm in a position to like give solutions to anyone that's been impacted by the hurricane. But I am in this mastermind group where people are like active in that particular area. The only thing that I've heard in regards to that is, have you asked the seller if he's tried to reach out for insurance, like reach out to his insurance company?
Yeah, I think he has, but this is the second time his home has been flooded. So he's just kind of
Interesting.
yeah, he's just tired, and I'm sure, once with any type of claim, he probably has money he has to pay towards it, and he's already invested so much,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't, and then I'm sure his premium has gone up, and all the
Yeah.
things. Yes,
What is
sorry, it's St. Petersburg.
that's in Nick's backyard. Yeah, St. Pete.
Yeah,
What's the asking price for that?
425. It's like right in the water. Well, not right on the water. Actually, he's not on the water, but I mean, there are properties in the area that are going in the 6 and 1.1, and that's probably before the flood. I don't, again, a lot of these houses probably all got impacted, so I don't know.
I
Just
think
want to hear.
And I think in order for it to be advantageous for an investor to buy it, you'll probably have to, in my opinion, just knowing a little bit of St. Pete. If you want to send me the address, we can take a look at it together. But you will probably have to get a little bit lower than that. The reason I say that is one, when a rehabber goes to fix it up and resell it, the end retail buyer is going to have probably some difficulty getting some insurance. And if they do,
Yeah.
insurance is probably going to be through the roof and super expensive. And if it's super
Mhm.
expensive to get that house for whoever fixes it up and resells it, it's probably going to be sitting on the market for quite a while, right?
Yeah.
And especially in the real estate market that we're in, I can only speak for Tampa primarily and St. Pete. It is moving more towards a buyer market where there's like a lot of inventory. There's a little bit longer days on market. And then there's a lot of price reductions going on right now. So I don't know how long he's been trying to sell it, but the person who buys it and fixes up and resells it or even uses it as a rental, it's going to be expensive. So I'll be interested in taking a look at it, just because it's in St. Pete.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think the biggest thing for him is that he really just wants to sell it at the amount he owes on his mortgage. So he just wants to walk away and not have to worry about the mortgage, which is the hardest part. And so I'm not really big on subject to. But I was just wondering, I don't know, just trying to be creative about seeing if there's any other options for this particular person.
Do you know if it's in North or South St. Pete?
I'll send you the address. I'm sending it to you.
Yes. You can make something work. Please let me know.
Absolutely.
And then real quick, Joy, just out of curiosity and also learning experience, how did you get in contact with the seller? Are you still dealing with the realtor? Like, how can you tell us how you came across it?
Very complicated. But yes, yeah, it's a little complicated.
Gotcha. Okay, no problem.
May I ask a short question around? Hi, everyone.
Absolutely. Hey.
I'm Mario Obixak and still at the beginning of my journey in real estate.
Nice.
And I heard from Jay that he's doing business also in North Carolina. Just about what my question is, do I have Can I make cold calls and text in North Carolina with any legal, or how it is called, problems or troubles that I will get?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, it's South Carolina that gives you more of that legality issues. So North Carolina, you're good. No, there's no restrictions at the moment.
No restriction. Okay. And do you use the how is it called? The script from lead mining
I
to
don't,
get it?
I have a different
I said to
philosophy.
get in conversation, because I'm not so familiar with English, or with the vocabulary, at least, as you may hear. Therefore, I'm asking, so if I get a script or something, what you would suggest for me, or what would you
No,
do in my situation?
I think that Nick and the team have a really good script as an outline. Now, what I personally, I'm very hesitant on using the word script. The point of
Yeah.
a script, keep it as an outline. The issue is that we get
Okay.
so focused on looking at the words, you know, hey, I'm calling about your property over on 123 Main Street. You know, you get to the point where you're focusing on the words in front of you and you're not listening to what they're trying to tell you. So you're not, so maybe from the start, because it's happened to me when I was starting out, I'd go through the script and I'm going through questions 2 and 3. And then what happens is the seller gives me a really solid 2 or 3 really solid needs and greeds during the conversation. And I'm not catching it because I'm so focused on being perfect with what's on my piece of paper in front of me. So
Yeah.
use it as an outline. And yeah, I still prefer cold calling. I send mailers for land, but I prefer cold calling. I think cold calling and
Yeah.
maybe texting, but I'm only doing one avenue, which is cold calling, and a secondary, which is for a very niche area that I'm looking to buy personally, and that's with mailers.
And exactly. And when you make the call, course, do you go in detail before you make the call about the property or the deal itself, or do you call a list through and ask everyone, is anyone interested in selling? How
Well,
do you handle this? Do you prepare for the call? You know what I mean? Or do you call out of the, so next number, you know, the address or
I
and the
don't.
name? And
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't prepare. I don't comp. If I used to do that, I'd comp every property before I made the call. And then what happens is the moment you answer the call, I'm not interested. Go F yourself. Click. All the work that I did, comping and analyzing and making sure it was the property for me, and they don't even give me the time of day. So I think the most important thing is get some motivation, gather some, be different. So that's one thing I recommend to everyone. If you're going to call someone, the average wholesaler in every community that you're in is going to answer the call like, hey, I'm calling about this property over on 123 Main Street, or another variation. Hey, John, this call is a little out of the blue. Yeah, right. It's not out of the blue. They know your script, so they understand it. So the way I like to do it, I act as if I've already talked to them in the past and I'm just following up with them. So
okay,
that's the way I talk to them. So if I'm calling Francisco, ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Francisco. Hey, man, it's Jay Mora. Look, brother, I'm so sorry it took me so long to get back to you. I got a piece of paper here in front of me and I'm so confused. I've been twiddling with my fingers for the last couple of hours. Is this about real estate?
Yeah. I mean, you called me?
Yeah, no, I think you still got that piece of property. Last time we spoke, I think it was like 9.5 months ago. I think you had a piece of land over in Tampa. Can you help me out?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I do. A matter of fact, I think I do remember call. I mean, I get so many calls all the time,
I
and it's
know.
not hard to keep up. And yeah.
Yeah, you're not selling that property by any chance, are you?
I mean, if the price is right, I mean, you know, everything's always for sale if the price is right.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, I'd love to make you an offer on that. You mind if I ask you a couple questions? You ask me a couple questions, and maybe we can do some business today.
Okay, yeah, just let me know.
I just want to know. I'm a straight shooter. I like to, get down to the bottom of it. I'm sure you're the same way, and I'm sure you can appreciate. Can you just tell me no if it doesn't fit for you? Just tell me to get lost.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
You're a good man.
I would definitely do that if the price is too low.
You're a good man. I appreciate a sharpshooter like you. Boom. And then I start going into the qualification. How big is the land? What do they know about it? Do they have a survey? Or, you start getting into the sales process as far as the qualification. But did you notice that when he said something, all I did was I stroked them back, right? When someone gives you an objection, like, oh, if the offer's right, oh, good man, I love somebody who's serious about their, who knows what that number is. By any chance, what is that number? What you say if the price is right. I'm not here to go on a fishing expedition, Francisco. Can you let me know exactly what do you mean by that? Can you help me out here?
Yeah.
So when you ask somebody, can you help me out? I'm a little embarrassed. I don't know if you saw that in the beginning when I told you, oh, I got a sticky note here. I'm a little embarrassed. Is this about real estate? So I turned myself into the child, and I turned him into the nurturing parent. People, for the most part, are good. They like to talk to other people for the most part. But if you ask somebody for help, the law of reciprocity states that they're going to most likely want to be able to help you out.
Yeah.
So that's how I approach it.
Yeah.
Mega. Thank you for the demonstration also. And the last question from my side with texting, because this is also what I'm interested in, or might be a little bit easier for me, maybe in the beginning when I become more familiar with everything. Do you have here also a outline? Because do you also attach them with the first name for sure, or how do you handle this?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, what I will say is last year, ever since that 8.2.10 DLC, whatever the hell it is, it came into effect, launch control stopped, a lot of my outbound texts. Now I feel like they're getting better at it, but I've mainly, I mean, if it's a cold outreach, hey, following up with you, it's Jay. Are you still interested in selling that piece of land? Period.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, along the lines of a follow-up.
Yeah, and keep it as short as possible, the text when
Short and
texting.
simple. Short and simple. Just don't make it sound like a cold outreach.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm of the
Yeah.
philosophy is if you got something off of a list, I'm pretty sure someone else has already talked to them. So why are you going to make your life harder on yourself if somebody else did that already did that cold call? So just act as if person. They're not going to remember if it was Francisco. I can just say, I talked to you about 9.5 months ago. And they're like, oh, Francisco. Oh, no, you must have forgotten my name. Tell you what, I get it. I don't even remember what I had for breakfast. It's actually Jay.
Yeah.
Turn it around.
Yeah.
Turn it around.
Mega, exactly. Thank you so much for the input.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also, real quick to add to that point, Marco, a book that I recently recommended someone else to look into. It's this book called Spin Selling. I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but I would highly recommend you guys look into it. Spin Selling, and it's basically, the author name is Neil. I can't pronounce his last name, but he did a case study on over 35,000 sales calls. And he compiled all of the data together, and he pretty much figured out that the best salespeople take control of all of the sales calls, asking only questions. And SPIN stands for situation, problem, implication, and need. So he just talks about that in each 4 of those categories. You want to ask questions about their situation, ask questions about any problems that they're facing. You want to ask any questions about, the implicated consequences or payoffs, right? And then you want to ask them questions about their needs before you even talk about either your product or your service. And I've started using that myself, only asking questions before we even get to the price discussion, just because you want to be able to understand, one, if you can't help them, you will rather know upfront at the first situation, because if they're not in a situation that they don't need help, it isn't agitating, they don't have a problem, then most likely there isn't anything that we're going to be able to do for them anyway, right? Or if their situation falls under a category of someone that's not motivated or really has no reason to sell, then right now that allows us to boost our discernment and let us know, hey, we don't need to spend 30 minutes or an hour talking to the lead that doesn't need the money, doesn't have any outlying pain, doesn't have anything else going on that they need the money for, anything like that. There's nothing for us to solve, right? So I think using the SPIN method and even reading the book in a little bit more detail will give you guys some form of like guideline. Because to Jay's point, I've never been a big fan of scripts either
Yeah.
as well. So I think the spin selling method will give you guys a good structure on how to take control of the conversation and then, you know, present what you're able to do. And then you can do it quick too. You know, each category you can ask 1 or 2 questions out of each category and then just take control that way. And if they try to veer off, reel them back in, right? Acknowledge what they say, keep going, you know. So that's what I would say, Mario, and for anyone else too.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Problem.
the goal is to turn the person into the sales.
I mean, it's crazy to think about.
The goal is to turn that prospect into the salesman. So if you can ask as many questions as you possibly can and just not sound interrogative, just make it sound like this is just a regular conversation. You don't go to you've never been to a doctor, I don't believe, that, you know, when you walk in with elbow pain, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, oh, you know what? We got half off on surgeries next week. Tell you what, it's normally $3,000, but if you act now, we can get you in. Tell you what, because I like you, we can do it for about $1,100. What card would you like to pay with?
Exactly.
No, that doesn't exist. So
It is not usual in the US. In Austria, it's not.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
you know, and tell you what, we can bundle it too. I see your knees popping there. We can add a prosthetic knee for, you know, blah, blah. You never hear a doctor say that. So
Yeah.
all here is for us to be a cross of a doctor, a lawyer, and a thespian, also known as an actor. So if you can get somebody, like when you walk into a doctor's office, hey, Francisco, your elbow hurts, right? Is that where you came in today?
Man, it's been hurting for the last couple of weeks, dog. And honestly, it's just getting to the point where I had to come see you, man. It's just getting too much for me to bear with.
Man, I'm sorry to hear that. Are you by any chance a tennis player or a golfer or anything like that, Francisco?
I mean, I try to lift weights maybe like 4 or 5 times a week. I'm very active in basketball, but I think, you know, I haven't been doing too much weights, but, you know, I'm just trying to get a little buff for the summertime.
Yeah, I see you're filling out there. I can appreciate somebody that spends time in the gym. Francisco, if you don't mind me asking, when you eat something spicy, when you maybe alcoholic drink, does it exacerbate that pain a little bit, or is it kind of the same? And what pain level are you currently at and normally at?
Yeah, you know, Doc, I'm not really much of a spicy food either. I do indulge in some mimosas every couple of weekends, so you know I do.
As you should. Good for you. Yeah.
Right, you know, but yeah, I don't really think it stays in my system too long.
Okay. So it doesn't get exacerbated when you eat. Well, that's a good thing. It could be that could have been an issue that I was leading to a different symptom. Now, if you don't mind me asking, is it when you pull down, or is it when you pull up, or is it when you turn your wrist?
Yeah, I think it's when I pull down. I think it's when I pull down is when I feel the most pain.
Okay. And is it normally in the mornings, in the afternoons, or is it just kind of sporadic? Do you feel like little muscle spasms throughout the day?
I think now that you ask, I think it happens more so in the midday, and then it kind of elevates towards the end of the day, in the afternoon, in the evening.
Okay. Now, imagine for a moment, you wouldn't want a solution for this today, would you, Francisco? At least to alleviate that pain.
Oh yeah, if you could provide me a solution today, that would be great.
Okay. Are you someone that takes does good with taking pills, or would you like more like a rub on kind of like medication to kind of numb that local area?
I think I will take the medication to rub, maybe if that will work. I don't know if
That's a really good choice. I had the same thing, and it was because I play tennis and I use this roll on. And tell you what, Francisco, in a couple of hours it tends to subside. And if you, I'm gonna give you my direct number. If you can call me and let me know how that works. If it doesn't, we could also add a very mild steroid that you take orally with your food to also help you with that. How does that sound?
Sounds good. Yeah, if it'll alleviate the pain, that's why they pay you the big bucks.
Yeah. Well, Francisco, let's do this. Let me write you this prescription for this, and check in with me in the next couple of weeks. I'm also gonna, go to the front and tell them the next 3 months to see me again.
Perfect. Awesome. Will do.
Thank you. So that's how doctors are. And don't tell me that's not how doctors are. And that's exactly the way they do that process. So they ask the qualifying questions. They get you emotional about the topic, and they're just telling you, hey, would you like this or would you like that? What are your thoughts? So same way with sales.
Yeah.
Same way with sales.
Yeah. And I think one thing to add to your point, Jay, is especially in real estate, because we're always on for the most part, right? Especially if we're cold calling, we're the ones approaching them. We have to kind of flip the conversation. And that's why it's so important to take control very early on. Because if we're the ones inquiring, we also have to have the skill set and the ability to have them sell us on why we should connect them with the money. Because in all reality, they don't get the money unless we verify the things that we need in order to make it move forward, right? And I really like the way how Jay is like very blunt and very straight to the point, but also still being very respectful, because sometimes you might just have to put into perspective some of the things that they say and compare it to everyday life, just for them to see like, hey, what they said is kind of unrealistic or outlandish and stuff like that, right? Because sometimes when sellers say like, oh, I'm just looking for the highest price, or they mention someone else that gave them an offer. One of the recent things I told us recently was like, I've never met anyone that went to a car dealership and told the salesman, I'm trying to spend the most amount of money today.
Yeah.
I can't imagine you going to the flea market, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, or Walmart, and walking in there and trying to say, hey, I'm trying to spend the most amount of money for this item that I want. Everyone wants a good deal.
I love how you mentioned the car sales. I was a car salesman before real estate, and when someone walked on the lot, what does everyone do? Like all the salesmen, they go on like a little, it's your turn, it's your turn, it's your turn. But then they go and they chase after that person, and they start, trying to ask like, oh, what brings you in here today, this and that. The way I used to approach it, I would look at their car and be like, that's a really nice car. Why are you even here on the lot today? I mean, that thing got low. It looks like it's got low miles on it. It looks like it, why are we even here? Like, what's the point of you coming?
Right.
And they're telling me, oh, actually, no, it doesn't. It's got 230. So I lost another 235 miles on it. It's good. Well, my job, I'm a real estate agent, and it does not look professional that, I'm driving up in this hoopty, busted thing that creaks. I'm like, oh, okay. So are you saying, you're not saying it's affecting your job in any shape, way, or form, is it?
Situation.
Yeah. So all I do is, if I want a negative answer, that car can last another 250,000 miles. They're going to give me a negative response.
Reinforcing their decision to even coming here in the first place.
It's a beautiful car. See another 200,000 miles on it. So always give a redirect of some sort. And stroke. When someone gives you a positive answer, stroke them right back. It's all about giving pats on the back with these conversations.
Yeah. And I think another thing too that kind of helped me is also reverse engineering when an actual good salesman sells me on something. And also because you also got to pay attention to how you buy and what triggers you to want to move forward. Because if you bought something either impulsively or you realize or whatever, when someone sells you like, oh, I ended up buying this thing, reverse engineer what got you to say yes. And then sometimes, like when we go to the mall or when we go to certain stores, Jay said it earlier. Oh, what are you looking for? What brings you in today? What's the number one response that we all say?
I'm just looking.
I'm just looking. Oh, no, nothing. I'm just looking. Sellers do that same thing to us all the time. So we don't want to get those responses. We don't need to ask. The first thing out of our mouth doesn't need to be, hey, who brings you in today? Because we got to know what type of responses garner certain reactions or certain things. So that way, because the reality of the situation is, if someone is really motivated to get rid of something, one, they'll be open to having at least a dialogue about it, right? Getting to know the other person that's inquiring about it. And then two, if they've already made decision previously before getting on the phone with you and talking about it, now it's just a matter of walking them through the process of reinforcing their own decision, which is what Jay eloquently just illustrated. Like, hey, just put another 200,000 miles on your car. Now they're just selling themselves at their own point.
Mm-hmm.
So, hey, somebody said, show us how to have conversations with motivated sellers. Jay, you know what I think we will be really good at, and I think it will be a learning experience, one, but also fun, is I used to do live seller calls here with the group. So I think me and you should tag team live seller calls. Whether it be our own leads, I prefer it to be your guys' leads so you guys can benefit more from it. But you know, we could do it with our own leads as well too. So
I think that's great. You know, it's something I'm comfortable with. I like people, and it's all about having the right processes in place. If you're being a human on the phone, because you can tell when someone's scripted, you can hear it. Like the first thing is, you know, I'm calling about your property over on Main Street, or this call is out of the blue. I mean, that's the two most common intros to every sales call.
the BS meter goes up quick as soon as you hear that.
Yeah.
Joy, you got another question?
Yes, if I can figure out how to unmute. So I talking to sellers, getting the motivation and pulling that information out. That is great, and I appreciate all of the tips and suggestions to incorporate. I think where I find myself particularly getting stuck is when it's time to negotiate a number, and then just really having a good sense of comping. And I just wanted to know, I know that you guys really are niche down in your neighborhoods. Like you have a demographic, an area that you stick with. So I'm sure that you've kind of mastered comping. But if you were in a completely different space or a different state, how would you just start the process of just really feeling comfortable about comping without necessarily having, an extensive buyer list and having all of that done, because depending on who you ask, some people may say the chicken versus the egg. Do you get the lead first, or do you get your buyers list first? And I think sometimes, depending on who you ask, it could be either or. But let's say in the instance where you don't have an extensive buyer list, you have a motivated seller, and you're like, okay, I want to get them nailed down for a number. Like, what would your approach be with that?
Gotcha. Joy, one quick question. Are you licensed in Florida or whatever market you're in?
No, I'm not at all.
Okay. So this is my answer. I'm actually very curious to hear Jay's answer. But me, over the years, what I learned about comping is I want to put as many solutions in front of the sellers as possible, right? So comping, there's two ways to look at comping, at least from my experience. If you're comping for the seller to get the highest and best price that they could possibly get, you want to look at the most comparable houses that are in similar conditions that sold within that area. Yes, you can make some adjustments here and there for square footage, certain features, whether it has a detached garage, a carport, and things of that nature. It's not necessary. There's no exact science. You just want to find very comparable other properties that sold. I like to stay within a half a mile starting off, and then I'll go as far as a mile, right? But you can make a very good argument if properties that are very, very similar within a half a mile sold for X price, you could justify that and make a very, very compelling argument, right? Now, as an investor and a wholesaler, it's in your best interest to comp differently because you're trying to get it at an advantageous price. So you're trying to find similar distressed properties that have sold within half a mile or a mile that reflect the price of an investor that would buy it. You know what I mean? Sometimes it could be a little bit difficult to find. Sometimes you may have to go further back for the dates. But what I realize about comping is depending on what situation you're comping for is going to determine the results that you're going to get, right? Because from a seller standpoint, their eyes are just going to be gravitated to the highest, house that sold and be like, well, if Mr. Johnny down the street got 450, I know I could get 550. that's some of their mindsets, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Us as investors, we have to kind of present the facts and be like, hey, this is how we make a living. This is how we feed our families. If it makes sense for me to buy it from you, this is the price that I need it at. And here are the facts presenting my case as to why I need to buy it, you know, at this particular price. So I wouldn't necessarily overthink it from the standpoint of like, you know, a final number, because it's all going to be subjective. And our comping, the number that we come up with, it's really an opinion, because the final say so is really going to come from two things. On the seller side, the final say so is going to come from the appraisal or the appraiser. And then on the buyer side, or, you know, if we're wholesaling it to an end buyer and stuff like that, they're going to have the final say so on what they think they're willing to be. So comps, we just want to have a baseline and a very good case of similar properties that have sold in both instances, and be able to present our case very well and say, hey, this is why I think the value is this based on these facts. And that's how I eliminated the analysis paralysis of comping in my nutshell. So that's my TED talk for comping. Jay, I don't know if you want to talk.
No, I think you touched base on it. And in the beginning of every conversation and then I have with sellers, I let them know, hey, I'm an investor. I'm looking for either price or terms. You know, this is what I do to, you know, put food on the table. I got 5 kids. This is what I do to feed the family. You know, I'm not going to be your best price, but I will say that I will be the most convenient, and speed is the name of the game for me.
No.
And then I start qualifying, you know, exactly. I try to get a number out of them. Right? A lot of times you're going to get sellers telling you, oh, well, you give me your offer first. And I just, you know, I try to drop those walls down, and I let them know, like earlier, I said something like, I'm not trying to go on a fishing expedition. Like, what's the issue about throwing a price out is, so you want full price. Just say that you want full price. You want above market price. Is that correct, Mr. Seller? I throw it out there. Like, I'm one of those people that dive deep into what they're trying to tell me. So maybe you just want to be able to, you know, ask those tough questions up front.
Yeah, because with houses, it's not an exact science per se. You just got to find, you know, I just always been in a position where you just have to find a medium. And matter of fact, this is a good way to kind of think of it too. For anyone out there as well, you want to find your floor, meaning like the least it could possibly sell for, and then know your ceiling, right? And then, you know, the minimum I could get, if everything goes wrong, this is the lowest comp that I see that's very comparable to my subject property. This is my floor. And then my ceiling, I'm looking for still a very similar property. It might be better condition, bigger space, whatever the case may be. But this is my ceiling. And then anywhere in the middle, as long as I fall anywhere in the middle of that, I'm okay. A lot of times where realtors fall in, and you hear this all the time, is when the appraisal comes back short. That means the bank ran their comps and was like, hey, we don't think the value is worth what you listed it for. You got to list it for $650. We think it's worth $500 or $550 or whatever the case may be. So,
Okay.
I give that range. I like that. Hey, Francisco, you know, typically I'm buying properties and within this range and this range. Is there any more need for us to speak any further now that you know this is kind of the range of where I'm buying properties at?
I'm gonna use that.
Should I hang up the phone now? Is there any need for us to keep talking? You know, I'm buying between this and this range. And either range that they choose, I'm making a fee, right? I'm making a wholesale fee. So this is the range I'm buying. Is there any need for us to continue to talk today, or should I hang up the phone now? Take away the conversation from them and allow them to chase you. It's like a dog. You chase the dog, it's going. You run back in the home, it's coming right back with the tail between its legs.
No. Perfect. Shout out to Gene for putting the spin selling video out. Please go watch that if you guys need help with talking to sellers, because I'm definitely gonna watch it.
All right. Well,
Anybody else? Any final questions before we wrap up for today? Sweet. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. As always, thank you to Jay for amazing role play as always. Next week we'll be right back at it. So hopefully, if you guys have your leads and you guys want to have those live solo calls, bring your leads. Okay, so let us know and have a good rest of your week, guys. Okay.
Thanks
Peace.
so much. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.